Hi, and welcome back to the Christians in Sport podcast. My name's Johnny Reid, and we're into our archives again this week. It's Team Golf Month, as some of the most individual sports people in the world now band together to compete as Europe and the USA in the Solheim Cup and then the Ryder Cup. And so we don't just have a former Solheim Cup player with us, but a two-time captain. She played 6 times in the Solheim Cup. She captained it twice, 2009 and 2011. She won that last one. She's also a major winner. She won the US Open in 1997. And in this interview with Graham Daniels, Alison Nicholas speaks about how she dealt with nerves at the US Open, what it takes to be a leader in elite sport. She's got lots of experience in leadership, what it looks like to motivate a team to play to their potential, about how she dealt with difficult situations on and off the course, and most importantly for us at the Christians in Sport podcast, how her Christian faith helped her and challenged her throughout her career. So we're going to dive in, we're going to jump straight in and have a listen with Graham Daniels chatting to Alison Nicholas.
Early days, you start playing golf at 17 really. Your dad's a keen golfer, but you had aspirations to be a top-class tennis player, but something just triggered the move to golf, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was a decent tennis player, but probably not good enough at that age, sort of 15, 16. But we decided to give it a go. My dad said, look, let's try and play in a few tournaments, see how you get on. And then I went to play in the Manchester Open, and I got paired up against Kate Brasher, who eventually went to Wimbledon, junior Wimbledon. And I got hammered 6-0, 6-0. And I'm thinking, I think I need to think about this. And the fact that I couldn't really see her over the net was perhaps one problem. But we decided that, obviously I wasn't good enough. And my dad just suggested that I'd have a go at golf. So we went up, had some lessons at a driving range with a guy called Richard Bennett, who's sadly not with us anymore. And I took it to like a duck to water. And my dad just turned to my stepmom at the time and said, she's going to be good. Became a member at Hallamshire Golf Club. And it just sort of went on from there, really. I got better and better and reduced my handicap ridiculously quickly to +2 in 4 years, which is ridiculous.
Absolutely mad.
But I did an awful lot of practice and, had lessons regularly. So I think that was the key for me, because I got into some really good practice habits and good fundamentals straight off the bat. And I think, that's really important, where a lot of people just go out and play straight away, don't have lessons and get into bad habits. And then, it's very difficult to get out of those. So I was very fortunate with Richard. He's a good teacher. And I just loved competing. And my dad saw that, so he gave me the opportunity to leave school and see what I could do in the game.
Within 4 years then, by 83, you're British amateur stroke play champion. So it's an incredible speed. So you're obviously a natural. It's obviously terrific. But in 84, when you join the Ladies European Tour, you're a rookie, really. You're going in from scratch. How did you cope with that first year? You duck to water, is your phrase for the golf. Did you just slide in and go? Was it fine?
Yeah, I mean, back in the 80s, it was probably an easier transition than it is now, because you have to go through tour schools and all that sort of thing to get on the tour. So all I had to do was fill in a form, because my handicap was scratch or better, and I got an endorsement from 2 pros, and it went to committee, and off I went. So I went to my first tournament. My dad caddied for me, and I came 5th in my first event. So, obviously, I was nervous about the transition. I was thinking, am I going to be able to cope with this? Is it going to go well straight off the bat, or am I going to struggle for weeks and months and years? I don't know. So, but that obviously confirmed to me that I made the right decision. And we just went on from there. And I got a few wrong clubs for my dad that first week. But so I decided that perhaps it was better if I got someone else to caddy for me.
So your first act of leadership was to drop your dad from being your caddy, right?
Well, not completely. I mean, he was just doing it to help me out on the first occasion and to, just ease me into tour life. So it was just him encouraging me, really. And he knew that he wasn't going to be doing it for very long.
It's a very successful period. There's so much for us to take in that we can't stop at every juncture. The years 85 through 2000, so there's a 15-year window where you're in the top 10 for 15 of 16 seasons, and you win 12 events on the tour in that period. So it's hugely successful. You'll go on and play in the States, and we'll come to that. So it's a very successful period in European golf as an individual. Who were the key influences? Laura Davis was around, obviously. Katrina Douglas, you knew at this point. Who were your key influences in life and golf over those years as you grew to maturity as a senior player?
Well, I think, all the people that you played on the amateur circuit with, it was like Laura, Trish Johnson, Katrina Douglas. Being competitive against them and seeing them, watching them play, and you want to always strive to be better. And I think they won before me, so you're always looking at them and learning from them. But, I think all the players around you influence you in some respect, because you're not necessarily trying to beat them one-on-one, but you're trying to win tournaments. So you're always learning from everyone you meet. But Katrina was a big influence in lots of ways, more in life. She had this sense of peace about her, and she seemed to be able to cope with every situation that she faced. So I learned an enormous lot from Katrina and became very, very good friends with her.
I'm interested in that link. This is the Christians in Sport podcast, and so is the passion for sport and top-level sport. Our listeners are people who play at the top level, coach, officiate, and people who have faith, and people who say, I've got no faith, but I like the Christians in Sport podcast. So for that reason, I wouldn't mind you elaborating a little bit on Katrina's faith as a golfer and its influence on you in this period. Where were you at in terms of any kind of religious belief?
Well, I went to a very sort of high church school. I went to School of St Mary in St Anne's Abbots Bromley, and we went to church 3 times a week basically. So, and I got confirmed when I was probably about 13. So I did believe in God, but I think Katrina sort of elaborated on it and sort of brought me back. I went away from it. It wasn't a daily thing. It was just Sunday thing for me. And I became very good friends with her, and she just shared about her faith and her Christian faith. And I realised that it was a relationship with Jesus Christ, that it wasn't just a Sunday thing. It was every day. And she just shared her story with me, and I went along to a lot of Bible studies that she organised on the Ladies European Tour. I was quite a slow learner, I'd have to say. It took me sort of 4 years to really make a commitment to my Christian faith, that I was going to put Christ first and live the Christian life out on a daily basis. And she just came alongside me and explained stuff to me. I could sense that she had something about it that was very different, and she had a peace in her life that, I wanted some of that. I thought, she seems to be able to handle things so well, and whatever happened to her, it didn't matter, because her faith was very, very important to her, and she always looked to the future and everlasting life that comes on committing to the Christian faith. So very significant for me. It was probably the best decision I ever made. I struggled with it for a long time. I struggled to understand it, and I didn't want to do it just because someone else wanted me to do it. I needed to understand the history of Christianity. I had lots of questions, which she answered most of them. And then I just decided to go on a journey of faith and commit to the Christian faith, basically. She asked me the question, she said, is there any reason you won't? And I said, I couldn't think of anything at the time. So I said, no, let's go for it. Mm-hmm. And it's probably the best decision I've ever made.
When was that?
That was in 1989. It was in a caravan, because in those days, there wasn't a lot of money around on the Ladies European Tour, so a lot of the players had to travel in caravans and live in tents and all sorts of stuff. So we had our Bible study in a caravan, and that's where I finally came to that decision, and I've never looked back.
Well, if that's 89, that's the year you join the LPGA Tour.
Yeah.
So you go to the States. Lawrence Farmer is helping you with technique. Paul Darby, as you've mentioned. And this is groundbreaking stuff. Physio, exercises, stretching, way ahead of your time when you're on a big transition to playing in the States. You think, I've got to find new ways. I've got to find something different. I've got to get better. When you go then, I know those early years were tough, and you thought of quitting, right? It really was tough early on the American Tour.
No, it was. I mean, obviously playing on the European Tour, week in, week out, I was in the top 10 all the time. And suddenly I'm going into a very competitive environment where the levels of competitiveness has gone up, and they're just better, and they don't make as many mistakes. So I'm suddenly a little fish in a big pond, and I'm struggling to swim. I was missing cuts left, right and centre. You make one mistake on the golf course, if you have a double bogey and a bogey, and you just go zooming down the field. So it was tough. I knew that I needed to improve my technique, and I needed to be fitter, and that's what I learned when I first went out there, because these girls were working hard. They had a fitness trailer, and the girls were in there every day and working on their game, and so I learned very quickly. I observe all the time people, and I'm thinking, well, what have I got to do to get to that level? And so I obviously put a plan in place and went for it. I stayed there for 6 months. I thought, I'm really not enjoying this. So I came back. I lost my confidence completely. I thought, well, I've got to get my confidence back, number one. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep falling. So I thought, well, I'll come back to Europe, get my confidence back, and then we'll reassess and maybe try it again. And that's what I did, basically. I wasn't going to sort of keep struggling to a point of no return. So I luckily saw the wisdom of that and came back and managed to get into the next Solheim Cup. And then I went back to qualifying school after the win. So my confidence was high. I qualified easily. And then things just, I had a little bit more wisdom about understanding that I needed to be much more patient and with myself and just give myself some time. And Nancy Lopez, interesting enough, said to me, you haven't given it enough time. You just, you've got to get used to the environment and work yourself up to playing over here. Give yourself more time. You can do this. And so I took that on board and,
Did you? You took it on board so much that by 97, you're walking on the 18th. It's you or Nancy who's going to be US Open champion. She's a hero as a young golfer at 17. And tell me what it's like walking up the 18th when you are absolutely confident you're the champion.
I wasn't totally.
You sound like you were, even though outside you're saying it wasn't a done deal. You've got to make the putt. But my goodness, you see, that this is why I think the leadership that we find in a minute in the Solheim Cup comes through. Inside, you're going to make the putt and you're going to do it somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any doubts. I mean, obviously, you don't know what they're going to do. I can't control her or how she plays. I can only control what I do. And so, yeah, I was confident, but, she could have made her birdie putt. We could have had an 18-hole playoff the next day, which would have been very difficult. But, I felt confident. I think my caddy was more nervous than me, actually.
Did you tell him off?
No, it was interesting because I had a wedge shot into the last third shot, and he had the yardage book, and the yardage book was shaking so much I couldn't see the yardage. I said, look, you need to calm down, Pete.
You need to calm down.
I said, you're nervous? And he goes, yeah, just a little bit. I said, oh, we'll be all right. I mean, of course I was, but, we had a bit of a laugh, and I think that just helped me relax. And I hit a good third shot, and I had 2 putts, and amazing. And I think Nancy's regretted encouraging me ever since. And I think her daughter reminded of her. I said, it's your fault. You encouraged her to come back to America.
But isn't that class, though?
Yeah.
I mean, that's class, isn't it?
It is. I mean, she's a lovely person.
Yeah.
And, she struggled to accept the fact that she never won the US Open.
Yeah.
And that was really hard for her. She really struggled with it because she'd come second twice before. And obviously, this was her chance. And she didn't cross the line, and I did. So it did affect her for a long time.
You're touching on something here, you see. Your autobiography, Walking Tall, came out in 2015. And one of the very noticeable things about it, and I see it in that story about Nancy Lopez, who's a giant and never wins it, and you beat her when she's been an encouragement to you, is you just refuse. In your autobiography, you read loads. If you're in sport, you love reading about people who've been at the top. You never slag anybody off. You never dig anybody out in this book. Not once. And there's something that I can't quite put my finger on. Obviously, something to do with your faith. Entirely committed to winning, ruthless, but in the right way, in a respectful and dignified way. Would you see yourself like that, or is it somebody else looking on?
No, I think that, I try to do the right things. And, I think as a Christian, you've got to ask yourself the question, is this going to honour Christ at the end of it? And, you've got to respect other people as much as possible. I think that's really important. There's been difficult moments over the years and incidences that have happened at the Solheim Cup and during tournaments, but it's not for me to put that in a book. If I've got a problem with someone or someone's got a problem with me, the most important thing is to talk that through with that person and not send it out to other people. I think that's very important. I think my dad and my mum brought me up in a way that also said that you've got to do things the right way. So when you read the Bible and the instruction you get from that, it is important to respect other people.
Well, I'm going to use that answer of yours to move us into not playing Solheim Cup necessarily, but being the vice captain and captain. So 97, Nancy Lopez, victory in the US Open. Your Sunday Times Sportsman Woman of the Year, plus a myriad of other awards that follow from it. Huge number of awards. MBE from the Queen, amazing. But in 2004, you call it a day in terms of playing. So you've been a professional 20 years. Meanwhile, as part of this, you've played in the Solheim Cup from its beginning, and you win 3 times, lose 3 as a player. Your great partner is Laura Davis, the brilliant, tremendous golfer. Laura Davis is your partner. Now, I know there's vice captaincy and captaincy, but I want to pin you then on the first time you have to say to Laura Davis, you're not playing this afternoon. Because you talk about difficult situations, and this is a great golfer, your pal, your partner. And you know for the sake of the team that she can't go out that afternoon. You need to change it around a bit. How hard was that? Was that the toughest decision you had to make at the beginning of leadership?
Really, really difficult. It was very painful. But I think that, I had to have my captain's head on. This is about a team. This isn't about an individual. And she was struggling a little bit with her form. And I felt it was the right decision for the team. I found it very difficult to tell her, and because I knew she'd be upset, because she loves to play in every match. And I thought this would probably affect her confidence a little bit. So yeah, it was very tough, and perhaps I didn't deal with it in the right way in some ways. I should have probably talked it through with her a little bit more, which I didn't do, because I'm being pulled from pillar to post at the Solheim. I've got to get on and send the team off the first tee, and so I sort of left her alone for a while. And eventually we came together and we talked about it afterwards, so we were able to reconcile that situation. But it was tough, and I felt for her, and it was just one of those things that you have to do when you're a leader or a captain, and it's not easy. But it was never a slight against her in any shape or form. It was all about Team Europe.
And I think it's at this point that if you're not a golfer and you see, that you, Alison Nicholas, were captain of the Solheim Cup team, that is really manager, coach, psychologist, the whole thing wrapped into one. You're not playing, so you're the gaffer, really, you're the boss. I'm fascinated by one more story of tension in leadership, right? Mark Casey comes to see you after the loss in 2009 Solheim Cup in the States, and you meet with him at Warwick Services on the M40. It's all glam. And his parting words to you are, look, we did our best, but we didn't win. And now we need to find a captain who can win. And you've got to drive away from that. And you think, I've no chance of being captain again. In 2011, you win the Solheim Cup in the most dramatic way. And he's the man who's had to phone you to say, you're captain for 2011. Tell me about that tension point. Were you gutted?
Yeah, it was sort of surreal, really. Obviously meeting at a service station, that's the sort of glamorous side of the Ladies European Tour. I'm sure that didn't happen at the Ryder Cup. I'm sure they met it at a 5-star hotel, but that was quite entertaining. Yeah, it was weird, really, because obviously we had the meeting, we talked through loads of stuff, and then he said that at the end, and I just went, I sort of laughed a little bit, because I thought, I thought I'd done a really good job, and I had a lot of support and great feedback from a lot of people about what a good job I'd done. So I'm thinking, interesting. So I went away and I thought, well, that might be it, but there's a committee who make that decision. He doesn't make that on his own. I was sort of thinking, might have a chance, but it's 50-50. So I thought, well, and I think that's where my faith, you draw on your faith and you think, well, whatever will be, will be. And I know that the Lord will, whatever happens, something good will come out of this, one way or the other, whether I get the captaincy or I don't. So I just went away and drove home and sort of got on with life, really. And then I got the phone call to say, well, by the way, it was a unanimous decision. So it was like, I've gone from no chance to, you're going to be captain again. So yeah, I was absolutely delighted. I wanted a second chance. Unfinished business as far as I was concerned. We needed to win. I wanted to get those girls to believe in themselves and walk tall and play well. And that was really my whole strategy, to try and change the mindset of a group of girls, because they really didn't believe that they could win against the Americans. We'd gone through a stage where we'd lost 3 Solheim Cups in a row. And it wasn't necessarily the four-ball and the foursomes. It was the singles. We struggled when one-on-one. And they just had this fear factor about the Americans, and say, well, I just can't beat this girl, because they're up in the world rankings and we're way down here. And so I got some really good nuggets from some of the Ryder Cup captains about some of the things that I could say to them and talk to them about. For match play, for me, is a great leveller. You can beat anyone on any given day over 18 holes. Over 72 holes on a tournament is a little bit more difficult. But over 18 holes, I felt that any of our players could beat the Americans. And I did some stats on all their tournaments and on their scores on every day. And I said, you know how many times you've beaten some of these players over 18 holes? And they all started going, oh, didn't realise that. And so it started to change the mindset. And then I got some DVDs from Seve and Ian Poulter about how to think and how to, if you believe in yourself, you can achieve. And so I sort of drip feeding them with all these little nuggets and bits of information that started them to rethink and change their mindset. Although it was a tight thing, but Ryder Cup, Solheim Cups are tight, it ebbs and flows. 1 minute you're in the lead, then changes, and then it comes back again. So it is a sort of an emotional roller coaster, and obviously that last half hour was just amazing. I'm thinking we were dead in the water, and then suddenly we re-emerged and clinched the victory. And it was just, for me, it was phenomenal to see others achieve and sort of fulfill their potential, or the potential that I knew they had in them. And that was hugely satisfying for me. And it was all them. I mean, I just did little bits, but they were just fabulous.
Oh, see, that's what I love. That's when you're talking to proper leaders. I just love that. It is all them, because the best leaders make sure it's all them. I researched what you did on this. You talked to Steve Peters in 2009, who is a huge influence on British cycling and other things, with his brilliance as a sports psychologist. You're nervous of giving a speech because you have to greet everybody and do the opening speech. So you go to a brilliant speech giver and writer, Dave Purdy, and you work it and work it and work it so you can do it. And that's just the beginning. Just captains you speak to, talk of Ryder Cup captains who you watch and you would take things from and who you wouldn't. And I love the way that you make sure that the girls get the stats, their stats and their win ratios over 18 holes. And then you plaster the walls with great life-size pictures of the girls in action in their hotel. That's not all them, but that's not a question. That's just a comment from me. That can't be all them. That's just sheer rigour from you, Alison Nicholas. Can I have an iPad off you with a John Wooden quote?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Come on, I want that story. You put an iPad on their pillow, used to put presents on their pillow, and they got an iPad, and you'd put a quote every night.
Oh, that's there. Right, yeah. Every night I did a John Wooden quote just to get them. I mean, some of them might have chucked it in the bin because some of them aren't like that. They don't overthink things. Probably Laura, possibly. I don't know. I never asked her. But others kept it in their yardage book, and really read it and thought it through and took hold of it. And I was trying to really to release the pressure, because it's such a pressure-packed environment, the Solheim Cup. And there's no sort of release. So I was making sure that in the team room that they could really enjoy themselves and just let go, and just give them little bits of sound information which would help them just focus on the process. And it seemed to work, and they were really up for it and played for themselves and played for the team and played for me. So it was just fabulous, really. And I did a lot of research. I mean, I read so many books on psychology and listened to Steve Peters, and I also went to Hope Powell and had a meeting with her. I did so much research and just trying to find every little bit that I could, and then think about really what I was going to say to the girls as well. If they were losing, I needed to have something to say to them. If they were winning, then obviously that's an easy part of it. But if they weren't, then I had to sort of have every scenario backed up with something so that I could actually communicate to them in the right way. But I had a great team around me. It wasn't just me. I had 8 helpers who were fabulous. I briefed them on how that I wanted them to operate, and I just wanted a really nice, relaxed atmosphere as much as possible, because as soon as you get onto the first tee, that's when tension is just unbelievable. So I needed to balance that out. And I don't like making speeches. I hate that part. So I thought, well, I've got to prepare. And so I funnily shared a taxi with David Purdy when I was doing a pro-am in Scotland, and he was doing the speech that night. And I thought, oh, this guy can talk. And he helped Sam Torrance. So I thought, well, this is the guy. So I pushed the boundaries in terms of the budget for the Ladies European Tour, because obviously we needed to pay him for that. And so I was saying, well, I need this, I need that, and I need that. And they went with it, and it helped me enormously. I actually wrote my speech myself the second time because he'd helped me the first time. So he taught me how to do it. Fabulous guy. Learned an awful lot from him. And, I think that sort of set the tone for my team. If I prepare well and do things well, it just brings that motivation and influence through to them, and they want to do well for you because you've done your bit.
Ali, it's been fascinating getting inside the mind of a an elite top-level player and a top-level coach. The one thing that I've tried to work out as I've listened to you is this incredible almost contrast. As an individual player, if I may put it like this, you come across as self-critical, sometimes quite anxious about yourself.
Yes.
And yet the moment you're given leadership of a group of girls, even in this interview, your whole demeanour lights up. It's all about the team, the rigour, the excellence, the detail. How do you explain that contrast as a leader? So self-critical of your own game, so brilliantly gregarious in serving others. Is that the hallmark of leadership?
Possibly. I mean, I read so many books, and that, I just learnt an awful lot from that. And actually to put it into practice is probably a lot harder, because obviously, reading just a book doesn't necessarily give you the skills to go and do that. But I talked to a lot of people and just observed. I talked to Monty for 3 hours, and I understood that it's got to be all about them. It doesn't matter whether I feel uncomfortable in a situation, because I'm not the one performing. They feel comfortable, and that's the most important thing. And so it's sort of weird. I'm probably a little bit like my father, I would say, because unfortunately my father died before the book came out, and at his funeral there was a guy who was a friend of his who actually sort of described my dad, and he was exactly the same. He was very self-critical but brilliant with other people, and made them believe in themselves and encourage them, because he was a doctor and he tutored med students, and they all came out with flying colours in terms of their exams. So maybe something there in that I got from him. But I am very self-critical, and sometimes can get very anxious when I performing myself. When I see others, I don't know. I don't have that so much, and I'm able to encourage and help others. And I think probably from my Christian faith, there's a lot of teaching in the Bible about that, and encouragement and believing in others. So I think that, I obviously learned an awful lot from that. But no, I just found it really fun to see others sort of come out and play their best and enjoy the Solheim Cup, and just a great experience. I think when you're a golf professional, it's all about yourself and your performance. You don't play in team stuff. I played for Yorkshire County, and I loved that. And so when I got the opportunity in terms of Solheim, I lit up really. I thought, oh, this is fantastic. This is about working as a team with other people. I suppose I missed that in a way, and I miss being part of a team. If I get on with people and I work in a team where I get on with people, then I thrive. It's when I feel anxious and not sure about something, then that's when I struggle. And I probably struggled a little bit myself because I was so hard on myself. But I think most sports people are, because you can't get better unless you are a little bit like that. But then when it goes to the extreme of that, it can be very damaging, because then it can affect your self-worth and confidence. So you have to try and balance that up, and I struggled with that, I'd have to say. And my caddies have often we've had big discussions at night about, Al, you've just got to just chill a bit, because you're affecting your whole mental performance out there, because you're having a go at yourself all the time. It's only because I really want to be the best, and I think that, obviously I probably got a little bit of it from my dad.
You weren't on the green when the putt went in to win in 2011, right? Did you hear the roar?
Well, I was on 18 when Suzanne Peterson came up, and she holed that putt. No, actually, I wasn't. No, you're right. I was down the fairway, and they were all jumping around. So yeah, I wasn't that far away. I was about 120 yards away. But I wanted it to be their moment. They'd done the hard work and the grafting out there. They'd come back from a position which didn't look particularly hopeful half an hour before the end. And Suzanne was a great leader in the team. We had a rain delay, and we were back in the team room, and everyone was saying, come on, we can do this. And I sort of said, come on, everyone, we can do this. And then they got the buggies ready to take the players back out. And Suzanne shared a buggy with Athara Munoz and Caroline Headwell. And she said to the both of them, and said, right, I'm going to get my point. What are you two going to do? And he said, I'm going to get mine, and I'm going to get a half. And they had a pact. And, you need leaders in your team. And I encouraged Suzanne to be a leader, because I feel she is. And, I wanted them to step up to the plate. So she was able to talk to and encourage and fire up two rookies. And they did the business. So wonderful.
Ali, your dad may miss the book, but he saw everything else. And he would be very, very proud of you, I'm sure. Very proud indeed. It's been a joy. It's been a real joy interviewing. Thank you. Thanks for making time.
No problem.
Great to have you with us. Thank you, Alison Nicholas.
Thank you, Dano.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We actually have 2 more episodes on our podcast feed with Ali, which you can find just by searching. In one, we interview her about her leadership from a Christian perspective, something I'm sure you'll recognise she can speak into with all her experience in the Solheim Cup. We also speak about coping with the decision to retire after decades at the top of her sport. Both of these are well worth a listen. You can find them on our podcast. You can find them on our website. Just search Alison Nicholas and you'll be able to find them on our website, christiansinsport.org.uk. On our website as well, you can find out how to connect in with us and with others involved in the world of sport in our networks. You can also sign up for Game Day, our weekly devotional for sports people. But that's it for now. Do share our podcast, rate it, review it so that others can find it. That really helps on whatever app you're listening on. And we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.